So this one here, this is my green apple Congo. A couple of Christmases ago, she wasn't very big, she was really little, much smaller pot. I think she was in a 6-inch pot. She fell off the table, got broken, and all I had was the top part of the plant. The base of the plant had just completely died off. So when I planted her in a Tim Hortons coffee can, mind you, because that's all I had at the time. We were in a really, we were in a basement suite. It was really dark, and it didn't have enough light to thrive there for sure. But when I put this plant in the pot, it just had this tiny leaf. I don't know how well you can see it, but it just had this tiny leaf and a spike. That's it. It didn't do much until I moved here to the farm. And once I did that, I actually put this plant in the west facing window on the windowsill because it could fit there at the time. And it just started putting out leaves, all these little tiny leaves. And then one day they just started getting bigger and bigger, and we have her now. I have transplanted this plant now. I've been here almost 2 years, and I've had to up pot it. This is the third pot that I've had to put it in. I'm hoping that it stays there for a while. It's a really quick grow. It grows all year. Just in this window, it grows through the fall, the winter, everything just keeps going. I literally forget about this plant all the time. It doesn't react. I could probably not water this plant for nearly a month and have no issues with it. No drooping. I've never seen this plant droop. It hasn't even, like, this was the leaf that I planted it with. It hasn't lost any at all. It also doesn't seem prone to get the spots that the Rojos do. You can kind of see a little bit through this one, but this was a transition leaf from when I had transplanted it. You can see the blush on the back there. I've had no problems with pests on this plant, knock on wood. No issues with them whatsoever. It's so easy. I actually only have it in, I think I might only have potting soil and a little bit of orchid bark in there. This is before I started mixing my own soil amendments. And I fertilize it with, like, lightly with every watering. But now that it is spring, I actually did top it up with worm castings to help it grow. But it loves this spot. The internodal spacing is so tight that I can't even pull like this sheath off of the plant. Like, I don't think I could even propagate this plant without problems, because the spacing, there's no room in there for anything. But this is definitely one of my favorites. She is my baby. I just love her. I just recently turned her because she's leaning towards the window. But yeah, she loves this spot and she will live here as long as I do. Okay, next. Okay, this is my second Rojo Congo that I got. His name is Larry. I named him Larry because at the time that I got this Rojo, I had also received my very first Imperial Red and my very first Black Cardinal. And I named them Larry, Mo, and Curly. This plant had, it had a few little issues. It did lightly get attacked by thrips and nothing that was too damaging. It's been really easy to maintain if that issue has come back, which it hasn't. Normally the leaves are shiny. This one came out kind of really strange, matte dull color. I don't know why. One of the favorite things I love about this plant is the fact that when the leaf comes through, it's red, kind of a burgundy. The leaves are small right now because we did have a couple of transitional issues when I did get the plant. But for the most part, it's kind of like my Green Apple Congo Eve. It's in a plastic pot. When I got this, I immediately put it into a 10-inch pot. That was what I did when I got it. So it took a little bit longer to start to grow. But since it has started to grow, I haven't even had this plant a year yet, and it's given me this is the fourth leaf going on here. And it's super easy. I topped it up with worm castings for spring. I will forget about this one as well. I get no drooping or wilting. I do water it more often than I water the Green Apple Congo. And I don't know if that's because of the soil. I don't even think this one, I think this one's pretty much got the same soil. I think that I transplanted them close to the same time of year, maybe even the same day, I can't remember. But the soil mix is a little bit more dense. It doesn't have very much orchid bark in there. But I do tend to water it a little bit more often, which is interesting because this is an east-facing window. You would think that I would water the plants more in the southwest window, but this one I probably water every couple of weeks, where the Green Apple I only water maybe once a month. But both of them don't seem to have an issue with their watering schedule, which is really not much of a watering schedule. It's just like, hey, I forgot to water you. I do use a water meter sometimes, but these guys are so hardy that I don't even have to think about them. They just throw out leaves for me. I'm hoping that I don't actually need to transplant this plant this summer. I think it's in July. I'll have to double check, but then it will have been in here for about a year. I will check it, but if it's still got room to grow, then I will probably leave it in here. But if it grows anything like the green apple Congo, those roots move quick, and they just love being in their little ball. But it doesn't like being root bound. It just likes being kind of condensed. So anyway, in the summer, I will definitely check this, and I will check them all and see if they need to be transplanted. But so far, so good. Unfortunately, I would turn this one, except that one of my dogs, when he's not feeling well, he likes to eat the leaves of my plants, and that just can't happen. So this one's probably going to just face this east window, but it does get sufficient light all day, along with the plants that I have on this sill, and it seems super happy. So that is Larry, my Rojo Congo. Let's move on. Okay, this one here is actually the third Rojo Congo that I picked up. It was one of those things where I was in the garden center. There was only 2 left. They had been reduced to half off. So I believe that I only got this for about $30. It was in a 10-inch pot for $60. And since the store was going out of business, they marked down all of their plants by 50%. And this was one of the last 2 that was there. So this one I actually left in the 10-inch pot for a while. We're kind of in my plant room, and I also have light coming from an east-facing window. And on top of that, for some reason, my plants in here really like my ring light. So I actually come in, I don't even use my ring light for me anymore. I use it for these guys because they love it. And it's just a tiny little ring light. You can kind of see it over here. Anyway, this plant did have a few issues. The soil had these weird little, I want to call them, they look like little tiny potato bugs. It took me a while to get through that. That's why one of the reasons I had left it in the 10-inch pot. I didn't even pick up the roots to check them. Pick up the roots. I didn't even pick up the plant to check the roots at that point because it just had all these little critters in it, and I wanted to get rid of them. So since I've had it, it did put out this leaf for me, which is still kind of damaged. You can tell it had a little bit of trouble. And then I actually ended up finding thrips on this plant, which shocked me because the area where I had it, which just completely sucks now, I haven't had any issues with thrips there. I do see that they kind of like my Rojos. Whenever I have found them, they haven't been anything too significant. They've been, easy to get rid of and eradicate from these plants. I have most of the problems with thrips on my Monstera deliciosa. For some reason, it just loves that thing. But I'm getting sidetracked now, thinking of the demon pests. But this plant I ended up putting, I believe this is a 14-inch pot. If I'm not mistaken, 12, it might be 12. But it's now started to grow for me. This one as well, because it's in here and the humidity tends to be higher. I don't need to water it nearly as often. So it's kind of like my green apple. I water this plant maybe once a month because it's in this big pot, where the green apple just doesn't care. It doesn't care what it's in. It's just happy where it is. But we are starting to see this growth spike here is turning, and it's going to give me another leaf. So that makes me very happy. When I brought this one home, it did lose 2 leaves in the transition when it was acclimating, but that is absolutely fine. I'm okay with that. I just love them. I can't wait for them. I can't wait to see them all at the end of the season and see how big they've gotten. And if they're anything like the green apple, they are just going to love being here. So this one though, I've only had since about November of last year. So I haven't had it very long at all because we're moving into April now. Today's March 30th. So I haven't had that one like that long, and with the acclimation process and the transplanting and everything, it was just a given that it wasn't going to do much, but you can see that it's starting to. Okay. Now I'm going to take you to see my sad girl. Okay guys, please bear with me. The light in here is terrible at the moment, but we're gonna do what we can. So this one was probably, when I got it, it was the first Rojo that I got. And at that point, it was my favorite. And I mean, if I'm honest, I still really love this plant. It's really dusty, so I should probably do something about that. But this plant has had so much trouble, and none of them are pests. This plant has never gotten a pest. It just, here's what I'm thinking. So if you saw the other three Rojos, or the other Congos that I have, you'll notice that they were all in plastic pots. They're all in plastic pots. I have no trouble with them, aside from, you know, little things here or there. But I can forget about them all the time. I don't have to worry about them. They're fine. This one, however, I had put in a terracotta pot. Now, once I put it, I've transplanted this one twice. It was the first one I got, so I did get it last summer, I believe at the beginning of the summer. When I got it, it was bare root. So I put it in, I had put it in a plastic pot. It was a smaller, maybe a 5-6 inch, it was a 6-inch pot, but it was really, really deep. I had put it in there. And I had actually had it in a different place. This is a west-facing window. I had just had it in a different area of the room because from what I had understood, they didn't need too much light in order to thrive. With this one, that was not the case. I put it in a little bit of a darker area, just kind of off here to the back wall. And it would get more sufficient light in the afternoon, but even then, in the position that it was in, it just wasn't getting enough. And that was fine. I have no problems with a slower growing one. It doesn't have to. I mean, I've got other ones that, you know, give me that joy of quick growth. So I wasn't really worried about this one. This one was actually hanging over my bed, and that was one of the things I loved about it, is that it would cascade out. And it was beautiful. But then once I put it in a terracotta pot, all of that changed. So the growth completely slowed down. I lost 4 leaves off this plant once I put it into terracotta. And at one point I thought that I might have been not watering it enough. And then I thought I might have been watering it too much. But that just wasn't it. I don't know what happened, and that was mainly because these leaves, I don't know if you can see it, but you can see the damage on these leaves, and that actually showed up when I started watering it more frequently being in the terracotta pot. She apparently didn't like that all that much, so even now, I'm very careful when I water this plant. Now my concern with this plant, since I haven't had like any issues, and it actually lost, the spike itself rotted. So I don't know if you can see that. I will show you close-ups of everything as we're going along as well later, but the spike that this had plant, or the spike that this plant had rotted. So now I have to wait for an entirely new growth point to grow, and that's when I moved it directly in front of this window. It doesn't need direct sunlight. I actually find that with this one anyway, when it gets direct sunlight, the leaves bleach a little bit. So also with this one, I have added a calcium supplement to the soil. I have not fertilized it yet, even though it's been almost a year, because when I transplanted it, the soil itself has fertilizer in it and I didn't want to over fertilize. But I did think it could use a couple of extra things. So I have put those amendments in the soil. And this one actually has a much more well-draining soil than any of the other three. And it's given me the most trouble. So from what I can see, for my home, for my care, these guys definitely grow better in terracotta pots. You might, or not terracotta, these guys definitely grow better in plastic pots. But with these guys, with the Rojos, you can feed them and forget them. You can put them somewhere, you can just forget them. But you won't, because they are amazing and majestic once they get to that size. The Birkin is a spontaneous mutation during the cultivation of the Rojo Congo. Unfortunately, the variegation is unstable. And if you know me, you know that one of the things that I am not a fan of is unstable variegation. There's only a couple of plants that I will work towards keeping the variegation of, and this one will probably not be one of them. Over time, it can still produce one or more leaves that look like the Rojo, so I'm actually interested to see if that'll happen. And on the other hand though, if I give it sufficient light, it can also produce either all white leaves or leaves that have a splash of pink. So I might have to experiment a little bit with this little guy. They do manage to grow maybe 3 feet, I'm told. I have not seen a Birkin that big. So it'll be interesting to see if that happens, if I can make it happen. So yeah, I might try a little experiment with this one. I did have to cut off a couple of the top leaves because they just did not acclimate well. I haven't had this one very long, maybe a few months. I'm not even sure if I got it this year or at the end of last year. But either way, it's just another Congo in my Congo family. And I am so here for that. So anyway, I hope you guys are all safe and well. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. Please like and consider subscribing if you like the content that I am bringing you. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.